Listen, the more you learn, the more you earn. Welcome back to another YouTube video. My name is Sabali Freeman. Today, I want to get on here and make a video on how I ended up making out this fall semester 2025. The grades finally got put in. I want to say about 2 days ago. I think they finally got put in on Tuesday. Yeah, so I got my grades back for all my classes. So I just kind of want to share that with you guys and, let you guys know how I ended up making out. What was my finishing GPA and my cumulative GPA so far. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get into it now. Going into this semester, I knew this semester was going to be quite the challenge just because it was my first time going full time. I've always kind of stayed around 6 credit hours. If I was taking a lab, then it was 7 credit hours, but kind of always stayed somewhere around 6 or 7 credit hours. So this semester, I jumped from 6 credit hours to 16 credit hours. So big jump. My first time going full time, so I knew it was going to be extremely challenging, and that it definitely was. So I'm going to list off the classes and let you guys know what I got. So starting with the easiest class was dance appreciation. It was a full online class. I had to take that to satisfy my general ed. So it was a really easy class. I learned a lot about just the different types of dances, some of the dances and the cultures that they came from and things of that nature. It's a very interesting class. I did enjoy it. It was a lot of writing. That's pretty much all we did was just write kind of response questions and response papers on questions and things like that. So a lot of writing, but really, really easy class. I ended up getting an A+ in that class. So um, yeah, that was a pretty easy class. So the next one is psychology. Took an introduction to psychology. One of my friends that's working towards going to medical school, he recommended me take that. Because the MCAT has a lot of psychology in it, so he recommended me take a few psychology classes. So I went on ahead and took introduction to psychology, and that was a really interesting class. It was fun. Pretty much everything was online as well. You did have to attend the class. I never went to class. It was a really, really big class. I think it was like 700 students. I'm the kind of guy that likes to sit in the front of the classroom. That class you couldn't even sit in the front. I think when my biology class ended at 12:15, that class started at 12:30 and I just couldn't really get there in time to really find a spot in the front. So I had to sit all the way in the back. Couldn't really hear the guys. So yeah, I think the class itself was just too convoluted, so I never really went to class. So I ended up just doing all the work online. So that class I ended up with an A, surprisingly. Um, as I mentioned, I didn't go to class, and participation was worth 10% of your grade. And I was definitely on the fence about that. Because I kind of told myself that, well, if I get A's on everything else, hundreds on everything else, then I'll end with an A-. I'm okay with that. But what I didn't consider is okay, what if I don't get A's on everything? Or, what if I take an exam and mess up one of the exams? Or, who knows, right? Then that's not really going to be the case. So I did find some extra credit work to do in there. But needless to say, I was definitely stressing about that grade. Um, because I really did not want to get a B+ in a class that was an easy A. And you have to think about that, your GPA and everything. Those classes that are easy A's, you want to get that A. To not get an A, that's, just kind of disappointing. So I ended up with an A in that class, surprisingly. So that's that. So moving on to the next class, college algebra. That class definitely was very difficult. My college or my algebra foundation definitely helped me out a lot in that class. But needless to say, it was still very difficult. We did a lot of graphing in that class. We went way deeper into logarithms and graphing logs and natural logarithms and things of that nature. Doing equations with those, and it was extremely difficult. The first half of the semester, I think, was the easiest, but right after we got into the third half of the semester, That's kind of when it got really challenging. Felt like it picked up. I did underestimate that class. It was a lot more challenging than what I expected it to be. So I ended up getting a solid B out of that class. I think I could have did at least a B plus. I don't really see myself getting a minus in that class. I think the B plus is probably the best I was going to do, give or take. But nevertheless, I ended up with a B in that class. But it was very challenging. For anybody who is taking college algebra, definitely make sure you brush up on your algebra skills, and you have a good foundation for that class, because it was difficult. And then going on to the next class, I ended up taking molecular and cellular biology, and that class was extremely difficult. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I just didn't know how difficult it was going to be. The reason why it was so difficult, at least for me, I think biology classes are just very intense classes because it's so much to learn, so much knowledge getting thrown at you. So it's already difficult from that perspective. Learning the language, and pronouncing all those complicated words was definitely very challenging. And also, it was really difficult for me just because I had never taken a biology class before. And that might sound a little crazy, but just to give you a little background, I dropped out of college at 18, and when I was in high school, I really did not do great at all. And when I dropped out, I went 10 years of no schooling before I went back to college. So any biology that I might have learned in high school, best believe I forgot it. You know what I'm saying? So taking that class, for my pair of shoes, it was kind of like my first time ever taking a biology class. That's kind of how I felt. I had no foundation at all whatsoever, not even a little bit. So yes, that class was difficult for those reasons. It was just it's a very dense class as far as its material. So it was extremely difficult. The first half of that class, I really, really struggled, especially the first exam. I think I failed like a 63. But nevertheless, I did really good on the rest of them. Didn't do that great on my final, but I ended up with a B plus in that class. I definitely think I could have got an A. It was a 4 credit hour class with a lab, but I ended up being lazy on a couple assignments towards the end of the lab. That had I did those, I definitely would have gotten an A out of the class. But because I let my laziness get the best of me, I ended up with a B plus. So that's that. And then the last class I ended up taking was organic chemistry. Very difficult class. For anybody who has taken organic chemistry, you know how difficult that class is. Very difficult. Even our exams, no multiple choice, so it was kind of either you knew it or you didn't. I think the difficult part for me is I never really grasped onto that basic knowledge that gives you a foundation of organic chemistry, such as knowing your acids and bases, your functional groups, how they behave when you're doing substitution and elimination reactions. I never really grasped onto those basic fundamental key concepts that no matter how far you go in organic chemistry, it's always going to keep circling back to that. And I never really got that. And that class was moving really, really fast. And yeah, I just never grasped those key concepts. So I really struggled in that class a lot. Um, I did not do well on any of the exams at all whatsoever. Fortunately, I was dealing with a professor who their grading scale, 60% of everything that wasn't exams, being homework, online work, group activities, participation, all that stuff combined was worth 60% of your grade. So if you did really good on all those, you could get a half-ass grade, like a 65, a 70 on an exam, and still get a B plus in that class, right? Or even an A minus, right? Depending on how you did. So because of that, I ended up doing well. But had it been all exams, I definitely would have failed that class. That class would have been a class I would have definitely been retaking for the first time. So it was extremely difficult. But that's why this winter break, I'm going to really spend our break taking my time and restudying that because organic chemistry 2 is going to be all exams. I'm not going to really have anything to save me, but nevertheless, I ended up with a B minus. Not my best. I think I could have for sure got a B plus in that class, but toward the end, I just kind of gave up. It was I did not do well in the final exam at all. And yeah, I definitely think I could have did better, but it was a really difficult class. So I ended this semester with a 3.45. Not bad. I definitely think I could have probably got a 3.6 at best, give or take some of those classes that I could have did a little bit better in, but that's what I ended with. And then my cumulative overall GPA is a 3.53. I kind of want to stay at about a 3.5 or better. Just for medical school, you gotta have a really high GPA to be considered competitive. Your GPA is in the end all be all. There are other aspects that you can add to it. Your research hours, your clinical volunteering hours. Your MCAT score. There's a lot of different things that if you're weak in one area, you can make it up in another area. But nevertheless, I think that your GPA and MCAT score definitely weighs the most out of everything. So I want to stay at a 3.5 or higher. So I got a 3.53 so far. Can't really go too much lower than that. So I definitely got to tidy up next semester and do a lot better and set my expectations a lot higher. But so I ended up doing pretty good this semester considering my first time going full time. So it definitely was a challenge, but I learned a lot. Learned a lot about myself. And yeah, I can't wait to continue my academic journey and see what else there is to learn. So, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me, and I'll see you all on the next clip.